So thank you all for taking the time out. I know it's time is precious to us all, and you taking the time out means that I want you to get something out of this. How many of you have gained more than 10 pounds in the last year? One person?
I'm losing it.
But you're losing, but you gained it and now you're back on the loss. How many of you have 5 pounds or more that you'd like to lose now? So pretty much the whole group. How many of you have weight to gain? Actually, I'm going to say that I think every one of you need to have some weight to gain. You just need to know what type of weight to gain. So we're going to make sure that you cover that. What I'd like you to get out of this is a talk that I've done since 1982. I've actively done this type of talk, getting ready for the Shape Up for Summer contest or competition or program. We did it many different ways. But it was a discussion about how to lose fat and to lose it in the right way, instead of losing a lot of weight, which oftentimes was muscle and essential fats, the types of fats that you shouldn't be losing, so you didn't look so good. You might have felt a little better, and 4 months later, all that weight's back. I wanted people to start losing weight, lose the right stuff, gain the right stuff, and keep it off until the next year, so that we don't even really have, all we're doing is a little touch. So what I want you to be able to do is to understand some of the basics of what fat is. The takeaway is that you've learned something new that you didn't know before you came in here. That'd be the number one. And number two is that you would do one thing or more after you're done with this. In other words, an active step. That now that you're thinking about it, you're motivated, you're willing to do, and we're going to have a list of those things. So there are all types of denominations of fat. There are different types of fat. I'm going to be going over the ones that we discuss, the ones that you're probably the most interested in. I don't think that there's too many people in here that want to know about the type of fat that's around your nerves. You know, I mean, it's just not. But you do want to learn about that type of fat that you see and you would like less of it because it's going to make you more attractive or you're going to feel better. I definitely want you to learn about visceral fat and understand just how bad it is and how this has grown so rapidly over the last 30 or 40 years. We are a much fatter nation now than we were 30 years ago. And it's not just that we have more fat on the body. We have more visceral fat, a type of fat that is absolutely insidious and so dangerous on many levels. You know, we have these diseases that plague America. We have diabetes. We have heart disease, we have colon cancer. Now, I've just mentioned some of the major killers in the United States. And do you know that almost all of those are within your control? I mean, really, in your control, and they're related to visceral fat. So when we get to visceral fat, I want your ears to pick up a little bit and pay attention, because this is your health. And you don't have to be overweight to have too much visceral fat. How many people have had their visceral fat measured recently? And you know, you're members of Shape Up. Every one of you can have it done. It doesn't cost you a thing. And that's that InBody 570 machine that we have. It is very accurate for you to be able to measure how much of the visceral fat that you have, and when you finally get it down into an arena that's healthy. So just if you're thinner and you think, I don't have visceral fat, then verify. It's nice to feel that. Why don't we verify and make sure? And if it is, great. So essential fat is the type of fat that we have to have. We need anywhere from 3 to 8% on our body at all times. This is the type of fat that you don't want to go below. And when I say essential fat, it is actually a type of fat. It's going to be more in the brown fat, in the beige fat, and some adipose fat, but it's not going to be in some of these other fats. Now, the essential fat, you don't really see, you don't notice until you've lost it. You know people are losing it when they've recently lost weight and they just have a gaunt look to them. It comes out of their face, it comes out. A lot of times we want it out of our neck. We're going to be talking about that fat, but we don't want to take it down to a certain point where we look older. So essential fat is one of the important things. Now, Almost every one of these are going to have a similar talk about them, with a few being very different. The two low-hanging fruit for you to do to reduce unnecessary fats and maintain the proper fats, this is going to be amazing to you: exercise and better eating habits. But we're going to talk a little bit about the type of exercise, and certain exercise is going to help your healthy fats. Certain exercise is going to help you reduce the unhealthy fats. So you need to have some understanding of all of those. So brown fat is the one that I want you to get excited about. When I said you need to gain weight, I was really thinking of two things. One is brown fat and the other one is your lean mass. Now, brown fat is the type of fat that gives us a more youthful appearance. When we were teenagers, we had plenty of it. As we age, we do lose brown fat by percentage, but we lose too much of it because of our lifestyle habits. Those lifestyle habits are inactivity, bad eating, over dieting, and believe it or not, over exercising, just doing too much exercise. So what I'm wanting you to understand is there is a balance in all these, and when you get the balance, you hold on to more of that brown fat. In fact, there's some things you can do that'll build up the brown fat in your body. How many people here take MCT oil on a regular basis? So for those of you that don't, you might want to take a look into it, especially the MCT oil that's with the is caprylic acid with the C8. You can also take the one with the C10, but I prefer if you have a higher amount of C8. And now these are things that if you're interested in this stuff, there's going to be a little sign-up sheet, and I know that you're interested. I'm going to start emailing you things. But I don't want to. So the type of exercise that they found that builds brown fat is strength training and high-intensity interval training. Not just lifting weights, not just doing aerobics, but if you were doing sprints, like you ran 100 meters and then you walked a couple 100 meters and you ran another 100 meters, that type of stuff. If you were swimming and you swam fast and hard to the end of the pool and you took 2 easy laps and then you did it again, or you take a class where we have the high intent, they're timed in between. It's actually pushing it to the limit and then bringing it back down, letting the capillaries, the arteries, everything kind of close back up and then have to open back up. It's a very intense form of exercise. The good thing is, for those that wish to do it, you don't have to do a whole lot of it. I mean, literally, I can do a 10-minute program that'll take down just about any of you. And most of you would only make probably 5 of those minutes. So it can be very intense, but incredibly effective. Now, you don't have to do it to that intensity all the time, but you could do 10 or 15 minutes of a modified high-intensity interval training twice a week and gain a huge benefit. The other one is strength training. And just to define that real quickly, because it's important about our brown fat, is it's not the type of just because you're lifting weights. It is a form of exercise when you take it to a form of failure. The muscle temporarily fails. It's called momentary point of failure. So it sounds negative, but it's just where the muscle cannot do another good rep at between ideally 4 to 8 reps. The magic number for most of us would probably be around 6. So that's strength training. And here's the thing, you do not need a lot of it. You need some of it on a regular basis. A good strength training program really is only about 15 minutes at most, unless you're going to athletic endeavors, and I'm talking to not people that are going for athletics, but you want to look your best for the longest period of time. Now, you can then do other types of exercise that are weights that don't have to be at that higher intensity. But twice a week, you should be doing something that gets the intensity up high enough that we could literally call it strength training. Now, one of the things this was news to me. This was well, every time I do these, I learn something new. And there's a hormone basically called uracil, and as that goes up, it is so powerful in our body that we start to produce brown fat, and we start to not store normal adipose tissue, the white subcutaneous fat that you want to be getting rid of. it also reduces insulin resistance. So as that hormone starts lifting up in the body, your body's how easy it is for you to go into towards diabetes lowers considerably. And it's just, your body fat will start to reduce. Now, white fat is kind of good and it's kind of bad. Too much of it is definitely bad, and too much of it is exactly what we don't want as far as appearance. It is the storage. About 90+% of the body has the storage in this white adipose. Actually, it could even be higher a percentage than that. We gain it mostly when we overeat. If you want to lose this cannot be done with exercise. So we just talked about brown fat. You notice that exercise was critically important to be able to produce more brown fat, and there's a few foods that you can eat that'll also help it, like MCT oil, and there's a few other things that we could do. But when it gets to your white fat, you're really only going to lose it by reducing your caloric intake. And then the types of foods. If you're eating a lot of empty calories, it's going to make it more difficult. Even if the caloric reduction is down, you'll still lose the weight and you'll still lose this fat, but you slow it down. If you start to eat some of the better choices in foods, you're going to find that our insulin management system, if we need enough of our white fat to allow our insulin to work, but if we have too much of it, then we become insulin resistant. So that's where we start to go towards diabetes. Now, what will happen is a lot of your white fat will start converting into the terrible visceral fat that we're going to be talking about at the very end. So that's one of the reasons why not allowing body fat to increase too much on your system is important for you to be able to keep the really bad fat out. So many of us, especially during the times of stress, we will eat until we're comfortable. We use food to comfort ourselves, and we're creatures that love comfort. And when you're stressed, you have a lot of cortisol that's running through your body. And one of the quickest ways for you to be able to drop that cortisol, which is making you edgy, is to eat a lot of food. And if it's calorie dense, carbohydrate dense, sugar dense, it'll take that stress level down very rapidly. And during that period, you're starting to pack on the fat. And then down the road, not very long, that your insulin levels will start to go down, the blood sugars go back up again. You're just going back and forth. What you want to be able to do is to balance out the insulin so it doesn't go too high and it doesn't go too low. Just don't eat to the point that you're really full. Eat until you're comfortable, and there's a difference between the two. If you're willing to take your biggest meal and eat a little bit less regularly, you're going to find that you're going to lose weight, and that weight will be body fat, and white fat in particular. How many of you heard of beige fat? Okay. Beige fat is like a brown fat. It's usually white fat that is being converted into a type of easily burned fat, and it's a healthy fat. Now, exercise is one of the best ways to induce that. So that's why when we exercise regularly and we are more active on a regular basis, that's why we will have less of the adipose, the white fat that we don't want, and we're going to have more of the brown and the beige fat. We look better. We definitely feel better when we have this type of a beige fat. Now, other than exercise, a couple of other things that you can do. Take a sauna. Get your body heated up. Take a steam. Get your body heated up. And then the other really effective one is cold shower. A cold shower. The colder, the better. The more that when you turn it on and you go, ah! That's what works. So instantly your body is starting to convert some of the white fat, some of the fat you don't want, into a much healthier fat. Now you don't hold very much of this beige fat, but the more that you have, even a couple percentage can make a difference. Some of the nutrients that you can take that really does help this conversion, and a lot of us should be taking it, is CoQ10. How many people here take CoQ10 regularly? Yeah, close to half. It is one of the nutrients that you probably should look at. It's not a vitamin. What it is a chemical that your body produces, but due to environmental factors, aging, decades of a certain lifestyle, sedentary, not eating the right foods, insulin levels going up and down, your CoQ10 production goes way down. And as it goes down, your cells don't burn energy as efficiently. In fact, by efficiently, I mean you don't burn as many. The engines just start going down. They start getting a little bit quieter. CoQ10 will help that. If you ever have bleeding gums, that is the first sign that your CoQ10 levels have gotten down to a critical level. It's the other one that works real good is the power plate. Any type of vibration therapy. More people are getting vibration pads in their homes. You know, we have an incredible one here, both in what's called the TheraVibe and the one that's the power plate. These are things that you should incorporate into your weekly program. The power plate, you literally can do it for 2 or 3 minutes, a couple different exercises, and that type of vibration is very helpful. The TheraVibe, you can do programs anywhere from 6 minutes up to the longest one is 15 minutes, and it goes through sequences of frequencies. How is it helpful to the body? It's a really big question, so I'm going to try to go to the simplest thing. The vibration, your lymphatic system gets stimulated. Your lymphatic system does a tremendous amount of things. In fact, much of what we're talking about is actively working both of your circulatory systems. One, your heart, your cardiovascular, and the other one is your lymphatic system. So it's very effective at that, but it does a lot more. It's doing things into your nervous system because of the vibration. If you're doing movement on it, let's say the power plate, it's making muscles contract at the frequency that it's set at. So instead of the muscle just doing this contraction like this, it's getting jumbled up. It's working much harder to be able to do it, which the increased resistance has a better effect. So that would be some of the things, but those are, and I can discuss more, and maybe people want articles on it. I'll bring articles that are just talking about that, and I'll send that in the emails. So subcutaneous fat, this is also a good and bad. It's basically the fat that's stored everywhere. It's a lot of the white fat. About 90% of the body is it. You don't want to really take your body fat total. This is 90% of all the fat. You don't really want to take your body fat for men below, in my opinion, about 14 or 15%. Women about 18, 19%. But really healthy for men is in the like 20 to 22. And for women, they've kind of revised it recently. I don't agree with that. The American Council on Exercise, up to 32%. I say that you really should stay at 28%. And that's what the American College of Sports Medicine's recommendations, and I go with them. One of the things that will cause you to not lose this properly is aggressive dieting. This is where I see probably the most problems is, you know, if you get to a point where you just don't have much hunger, and if you've gone through diets, you've been there, you know what that feels like. It's just easier not to eat and not to take care of things. And you get excited because you're seeing that weight drop so rapidly. But rapid weight loss is usually a sign that you're losing too much of the better fats, you're losing muscle, and you're not losing as much of this fat as you think that you should. The other part of it, though, is that calorie reduction is an absolute necessity. So we can talk about the quality of calories, but you can eat too many good, high nutrient, protein calories and gain weight and gain this type of fat. So you always have to remind yourself that too much is definitely bad. Too little for an extended period of time is bad, is not getting you to your goal. Weight loss should never be what your goal is. Your goal should be to lose percentages of body fat and not lose any of your muscle mass. That should be the goal. In fact, every decade past 40, it becomes more important because it's a little more difficult for us to hold on to that muscle mass every decade. But the good news is we can. And we have people all over in this club that in their 80s holding on to the muscle mass that a lot of guys in their 40s or 50s would go, my God, I'll give anything for that. You know, so it's your approach to it. Now, men will hold on to the muscle mass a little more generally than women, but it's not as much because you're a man or you're a woman, it's that men tend to do more strength training. That's changing. You know, if you look in our club, look how many younger girls now are doing serious strength training. You're going to see a completely different trend in the next 30, 40 years because of the type of things that they've chosen to do instead of just rely on walking or to rely just on what we thought of as cardiovascular. We were sold that that was the way to lose fat and that was the way to stay healthy. It helps, but it's only one part of it. Now, visceral fat. We finally come to the one that is the bad fat. This one really is extremely oriented to diet. I mean, exercise is going to be essential, but your diet is going to be even more important. This is where when you are willing to eat too much sugar because you deserve it, you know, the cookies, and the other one is artificial sweeteners. I mean, artificial sweeteners are definitely involved with visceral fat. You know, a little bit of sugar is not what I'm talking about. That's not the problem. It's when we go to an excess, or we're having refined flours on a regular basis, pastas and crackers, and we're not willing to take some of these and make them into a more resistant form. Because the next thing I want to talk about, resistant starch is a type of starch that your body cannot digest. So you can't gain weight on resistant starch. So that's a good thing, and it does something much more important than that. It goes down into the colon. See, once foods get down into the colon, there's no more digestion by you. Your digestion takes place in the small intestines. Once it gets to that colon, that's done. But there are very important things down there called bacteria that do that. They literally ferment it, and they ferment it into things like an MCT oil, into a caprylic acid, a C8. And this is what really fuels your colon to remove. That's the fuel of your colon. When we don't move, we don't have our bowel movements as well as we would like to, it might be because we're just not getting enough of the caprylic acid and some of these other medium chain fatty acids that are made from resistant starch. Now, I'll talk about what resistant starch is in a second, but I want you to understand why it's important. The other one is soluble fiber. So soluble fiber is, it kind of dissolves in water. Unsoluble fiber is also important, but I think soluble might be more. And you cannot digest it, and it's fermentable. So resistant starch and soluble fiber will go into the colon. We've been told for decades that most of us do not get enough fiber in our body. And it really is true. And so you need to make an effort at it. Now, if you're eating enough raw vegetables or fresh vegetables, even cooked vegetables, you're getting some of it. But some of the tricks that you can do, and you like a potato, is you roast a potato. We used to boil it, and we found out that it works, but it's not as efficient. For reasons I don't quite understand, chemically, you roast it, then you put it in the freezer for a day. And a big part of that potato is now resistant starch. It also works with white rice. It also works with pasta. But the one that it works the best with is going to be white rice and a white potato. Now, it doesn't work with sweet potatoes, but sweet potatoes have a decent amount of resistant starch automatically in it, and it also has soluble fiber. No. Okay, so. So here's the next part of resistant starch. So you've now frozen that potato. It's a potato popsicle. It's a roasted potato popsicle. You need to take it out, and we find that cooking it in the oven again at low heat. I like to take it, my oven will go to 170 degrees. I put the potatoes in there, and I leave them in there for a period of time, and then turn the oven off and just let them sit. By the time they come out, they're not piping hot, they're hot, and they taste really good. There's something that happens when you have a resistant starch in a potato. It makes it taste better. And I have a little bit of olive oil on it. So that's how I do it. Don't microwave it. I almost am convinced it messes up with that crystallized starch, but it also doesn't taste as good. So I'm sure you'll like. A baked potato, it could be, yeah, it could be any type of a potato that you like. You know, we like the little, what are they, little white potatoes, russet potatoes. It works with all of them. And yeah, so the red potatoes and so forth.
Does alcohol affect visceral fat?
Yeah. Alcohol will affect visceral fat, especially in excess. That's a big part of where a fatty liver can come from. Small amounts of alcohol on a regular basis is not a problem. So one of the things that you can do if you drink X amount per day and you want to see if there's a difference in your body, then we'll do the in-body test. You cut your alcohol content down until July 1st, or as close to that as you can get, remeasure, and let's see what happens. I'll guarantee you that if you take just some of these ideas and you apply them for 2 months, you will see a difference. A lot of you will see the visceral fat, you're going to see that number go down. Something I do want to mention that it's a product that I want people to take. You can find it in many different places. I have it up on our website under our Get Healthy store. It's called HMB. HMB, while it doesn't directly help with fat, it does help with your metabolism and it builds muscle. In fact, we're finding that it's one of the best things right now to help build muscle. It is a kind of a protein, but not quite a protein, but it helps us digest our protein. It really speeds the muscle building up in people over the age of 40. Now, under that, athletes are taking very large amounts of it. We don't have to take that much, but just taking a decent amount on a regular basis statistically can increase muscle mass 18% higher than those that are not taking it. And there's study after study. All you have to do is Google it. We take it in the powder. So we take a product that's from Life Extension, and that's what's up on my website, and I have a code that you can get a discount on it if you want to buy it through there. It does help support me, so I make it, a couple dollars on each one of these. But what it does is they blended it with vitamin D, and it's interesting. You've started to hear about how important vitamin D is. It's also important for us to build our muscle up, especially with something like an HMB, so that it has both of these. You just got to make sure you don't take too much vitamin D because that could become harmful. Where does vitamin D come from? Okay, so his question was, how do you restrict calories, do intermittent fasting, and hold on to muscle mass? Carefully. Because you're cutting the edge, right? So a lot of athletes try to do that. Wrestlers, they got to make weight, but they got to keep their lean mass. They got to keep their strength. There are products that you can use, and I can talk offline on some of the things that I think would be something for you to look into. But right off.